Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan, I'm the Mood Read Queen, and I am really struggling with a lot of things, mostly life, and apparently doing 2 videos a week. We'll get back to that, I promise. I know we're kind of sloping towards some horrible, is she gonna keep making videos? Yes. But I have 2 weeks left of my 2 grad classes, which I know I've talked about a lot on here because so much of my life is about that. And I've started every year, I started doing this my first year of teaching, and I've sort of slowly amassed quite a large collection. But I wear Christmas sweaters every day that we're in school after Thanksgiving break. So this is day 2. And today we've got on this lovely, you can't see it very well, but anyway, it's pretty cute. The angle on here never lets you see my whole outfit, but whatever. Anyway, it's got jingle bells on it. It is a bitter, cold, windy evening when I am recording this, but I just wanted to try to get some videos out again because I have all these great ideas and know I've talked about this a lot, but I'm telling you, once I'm done with these classes, I'm going to be a whole new woman. I'm going to be a whole new woman. I don't have to go to class 2 nights a week. I'm so excited. And I won't be talking about weird Victorian novels unless I want to. So anyway, so this is my end of the month for November wrap up. I'm recording this a day early, but I probably won't post for you guys until a few days late because timing and editing and all that stuff. So, and I'm trying to have a life too. I don't know if it's working, but I read in the first half of the month. I actually did my very first mid-month wrap up, and I did that because I didn't like saving it to the end. All of them. The videos were too long. I tried doing the thing where I filmed throughout the month, too long, and so I recorded a video mid-November, talked about 6 books, and it says November mid-month wrap-up, so if you want to go watch that, you can, but this is the last 7 books I read this month. 7 sounds like a good number, except my experiences in the second half of November were, bad. It wasn't a horrible, horrible reading slump, but I'm doing this thing. I don't know if you guys do this. I do this a lot, especially if I know I have big responsibilities coming up. I do this thing where I won't let myself start a book that I know I'm going to love because I can't afford to be distracted. And so I've got this big paper coming up. I have to read quite a few books for that. Not quite a few, but I've got some books that I ordered. I'm actually listening to a book on audio right now specifically for this paper. And I just know that if I let myself read the books I really want to read, I will get super distracted, and I just have so many responsibilities right now. So, and some of those responsibilities are to you, even though I'm barely here. So, let's get started. I'm going to go in order of the books that I have read. The last book I talked about, I believe, was Minx, by Julia Quinn. Sorry, I'm looking down at my phone. And I already talked about that book. I'm pretty sure. Isn't that great? It was in the video. It was in the picture for my last one. So, the first 3 books then are all going to be audiobooks that I listened to. And I did this because I just couldn't settle on an audiobook. And again, I wasn't sure what I wanted to start. So I actually listened to 3 Audible original audiobooks, which were all fairly short in length. One of them was probably an hour and a half. One was 2.5 hours. So they were pretty short. But hey, I read novellas and I count those. So it was a rough month. It was a rough second half of the month. The first half of the month was great. Second half of the month, truly questionable. So anyway, let me rotate. There's not a really good way to do this, is there? We'll just do that. Okay, so Um, my first book that I read in the second half of November is it was called A Thief in the Night. It's by KJ Charles. So I have only read, let's see, one, two, three. I read like something like 6 maybe books by KJ Charles, and they're all sort of the historical supernatural kind. I don't know why I'm speaking with this hand when I'm supposed to be here. Let's do this instead. Yeah. So, I've listened or I've read her, oh my gosh, Magpie series, Charm of Magpies. Really, really love those. They're just wonderful. And I think I've shared I think I have a video about them. I do. I talk about the whole series. It's like gay, historical, supernatural fantasy. It's really good. And I had a great time reading them last spring, maybe. Highly recommend. But anyway, KJ Charles also writes a lot of other gay historical romances. And she might have some other stuff, but I think it's mostly gay historical romances. And I have a lot of those I want to read as well. But this was an Audible original, and she was sharing about it on her... oh my gosh. She was sharing about it on her social media, and I was like, I gotta do this. So, this book, I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but like, that's fine, I guess. So it's about Toby and Miles. So Toby, he is a thief, so thief in the night, and he grew up in a household where his like father was drunk. He was an alcoholic. He didn't really take care of his kids. And when Toby was old enough, he ended up basically leaving behind his 2 younger siblings and trying to make a life for himself. And we don't know how long that's been, but we know it's been several years. And he hasn't been like super successful in that. And anyway, so he meets Miles at a hotel, and like they have a moment, they have a connection, and so they spend the night together. But what am I trying to say here? Toby ends up stealing his wallet and his watch, and he doesn't really feel bad about it because that's what he does. And then a few days later, he's like hitching a ride with this guy who's on his way to a house, like a great house, to be a valet for like is he supposed to be like an earl or something? I don't really know, actually. Yeah, he's supposed to be an earl. But the valet gets there, and like the carriage stops, and he sees this house that's like in rough shape. Okay, it's like super rough shape. So he's like, this is not the life for me. And he like jets out of there. And Toby is like, well, maybe I can see if they still need help. Like, might as well, right? I could do a job. And so he goes, and who's the new earl who has moved into this house, but Miles, the man he sort of seduced and stole from. And so Miles refuses to give him a job, but he is going to let him live there and help organize the house, because this is bugging me. It's a little off. There we go. Help him organize the house because it's a total disaster. It's like a hoarding mess. And Miles's father was sort of delusional towards the end of his life, and he got rid of a bunch of stuff, and the house is just a disaster. And so Miles needs help going through it, and he can't pay Toby. He doesn't want to pay him because he stole from him, but he needs the help. And so that's kind of the story. They are working together, cleaning the house, and Miles is, the longer they work together, the more they share about themselves. Miles is sort of just like disillusioned. He was a gambling addict, and then he was a soldier for 5 years. He stopped gambling after his first year, and that he went into the military because his father wanted him to, and that was like kind of his imprisonment to like stop gambling. And he eventually did. He learned from his mistakes, and but his father had vowed to never let him inherit. And so Miles thinks his father died because his father just died, and he just barely missed him. He thinks his father wasn't proud of him and that he was still judging him and was like never going to forgive him. And so later, the story kind of follows this. Is that really true? And also, can Toby and Miles be together? That kind of a thing. As with so many novellas, novellas are so hard to do right, which you're going to see in like the next three that I talk about, this one and then the two other Audible originals. They're just so hard to do right because you have to feel connected to the characters. You have to feel like there's significant character development, and it needs to feel like it's not being rushed, like you're not missing out on stuff. And if that's the case, then you're doing it well. But none of the ones that I read did it well. This one came the closest, but it still just wasn't it for me. I will definitely still check out KJ Charles more for stuff, because I think her longer books, even just a little bit longer, would have been helpful. Or the series, you have more time to develop the characters. And these, it just wasn't as compelling. There's a little bit of a mystery about what happened to all his father's money and whether or not Miles is actually going to inherit it. For the most part, it was just kind of not very interesting. The narrators were pretty good. So that was the first audiobook I listened to in the second half of the month. I then listened to A Vineyard Valentine by Nikki Boshi. No. No. I don't know why I did this. I had all these in my library and Audible. That's one of the only reasons I have an every other month credit subscription, because I'm like, might as well. And also so I can keep up with sales if I want to. I'm trying not to spend any money. But this one, I mean, the cover's cute. It wasn't one I wanted. And again, and I'm sorry if you can hear the wind. It's quite windy outside tonight. But this one just was one of those where it was like, it was a meet cute, in one evening, which is valid. I like that kind of indie vibe. I really like those kind of movies that take place over a short period of time. But again, it has to be done well. And the main character, her name is Eloisa, the color Elo. And she's just kind of not likable. And it's basically about, so Eloisa, what's her last name? Giordano? Her family owns a winery, and I think her father's passed away. She's now the CEO of the winery, and she decides that she wants to have, in addition to their very successful Happy Yay Valentine's Day party, she wants to have a sort of hating on Valentine's Day singles event, because she's never really had great experiences with Valentine's Day, though she doesn't really elaborate very much on that. She tries to explain it later, but it honestly comes across as like a ridiculous reason, and it would be nice to get more details on that. So she decides she's going to have like this fuck Valentine's Day party on the other side of the winery, and her friend, who like does a lot of the event planning, is planning like the big event. And so her friend gets food poisoning, and Eloisa has to oversee both events. And it's clear from the beginning that the first event, the initial event, is going to be way more successful than the one she planned. And she ends up meeting this guy. I can't remember his name, because literally we don't know his name for most of the time. She calls him like, what'd she call him? Mr. Chardonnay, I think is what she calls him. He comes to the wrong event. He's there early. They end up talking. They have kind of a connection, but I don't know. It's hard to tell with her. And then she has to go back and forth between both events. So she ends up seeing him quite a bit. And then her event fails. Everybody, kind of is a success, and everyone just like goes off and hooks up. And everyone who doesn't leave goes to the other event and gets let into that one. And so they end up spending time together. They have an odd number of people at the event, so she ends up participating in the event with a game thing, and she and Mr. Chardonnay end up chatting, and Eventually they learn that he's actually was there to see her friend who had the food poisoning, because that friend had been trying to set him up with this woman, and turns out the woman that she was trying to set him up with was in fact Eloisa, and Eloisa knew that her friend was trying to set her up with this like accountant, I think, maybe a lawyer, accountant, and Eloisa was like, ugh, no, and turns out it's this guy, and it's sweet, but very two-dimensional, very Hallmarky. And at least in Hallmark, I get to, like, be there. This just kind of felt, I mean, it was very Hallmarky. It just felt very detached. And at the end, you had, like, this tacked-on epilogue, and I was like, okay. So, don't recommend, honestly. It was kind of a waste of my life. The third audiobook I listened to is Sunset Springs by Case and Callender. I'd heard decent things about this. A few people on BookTube had talked about it. And I'll just I want to preface my review of this by saying, I think, I mean, you know this about me already. Obviously, representation and diversity of characters is important, right? I mean, incredibly important. But also, number one, has to be done well. Number two, I can dislike anyone regardless of their, this sounds terrible, of their race, sexuality, like gender identification, whatever. You can still be like an asshole. You know what I mean? So it feels terrible to say out loud, but you still can be a dick. And so this book really pissed me off because, first of all, the main character is trans. Awesome. I've read quite a few books where the main character is trans, but like nearly not enough, right? And so the main character is Charlie, and Charlie grew up in a small town called Sunset Springs, moved to New York to go to college, I think, transitioned there, and has been living his life in New York in publishing. He works in publishing. And it's a job that he really loves, but he sacrificed a lot to be able to work that job. He doesn't really have a personal life, and he doesn't really date. And also he's found that a lot of people don't really want him for him. Like he's too, maybe he's like too gay, or he's not, mask enough, or they don't have a preference for his physical anatomy, like, and so he has all these different things which are valid. Then he gets fired because his job downsizes, and he ends up having to go back home, and he hasn't been there since he transitioned. And so he's like, I don't want to go back to this small town, they're super small-minded, and I'm not excited about it. And he ends up working at his mom's bookstore, which is awesome. She has a little bookstore. She has, I can't remember, a condition that flares up from time to time. And I cannot remember for the life of me what it's called right now. It'll come to me later. But the bookstore is not able to be open as often because of her condition. And so, he is working there, trying to organize the store, is ordering books, and he ends up meeting Jackson. And Jackson is this guy who he knew in college or in high school. He was a star football player. Everyone loved him. And Jackson, in the years since, has come out as gay, and actually told his girlfriend. They ended up breaking up, and then she told people, and yep, just outed him to the whole town. Just super great. And so now people are like assholes to him. Some people like, sort of like just kind of quietly homophobic. And then there are people who were like, when Charlie and Jackson start to maybe pursue something, they start like a sort of friendship, then it becomes sort of like a physical like relationship, and then Charlie's like, he's not really into relationships, but that's because he's never really had a good one. And Jackson really likes him. And so they end up going out on some dates, and there's this woman at the diner who's like, this is a family establishment. And I was like, bitch, rude, you know? Just God. So anyway, I feel bad saying this stuff though, because so the story in itself is not a bad one, right? Going back to your hometown after you have changed, like, is a narrative that some people can relate to. And to add, in addition to that, a transition, a small town lifestyle, opinions of people who never really cared for you much in the first place, having judgments about your life choices, about who you are. I mean, I think there's some relevant stuff there. But Jackson takes everything and kind of just deals with it. And Charlie complains about everything. And I'm not saying Charlie doesn't have things to complain about, but Charlie needs to shut the fuck up also. It was just too much. He was so complaining, and I was like, Charlie, I get that this sucks for you. But he was like, I'm not saying he was seeing racism where it wasn't there, and I'm not saying he wasn't seeing homophobia or transphobia where it wasn't there, but also, I don't know, Charlie, I've read a lot, I've watched a lot, I'm not a perfect person, but you gotta calm the fuck down, sir. So, I don't know, I just didn't really like it that much. And then at the end, they're together, you think it's gonna be good, fine. And then he ends up getting a job back in publishing, which he was starting to work on his memoir, and Charlie, and he was really enjoying working at the bookstore, and then he finally got a job back in publishing in New York, and then he and Jackson are going to try to do the long distance, 5 hours away, and they're going to visit on weekends and stuff, and I was like, I thought we were undergoing some character development, and maybe change this town and stuff. Why is it called Sunset Springs? I don't know. I didn't like it. And I'm a little unsure if I should continue to I don't know if I should check out more of that author's stuff. I don't know. These Audible originals have not been doing it for me, and that makes me sad because I really like the idea of them. I love I like a novella that's well done, but these just did not do it. The closest one was definitely the first one, but the other two were just really, really disappointing, to be quite honest with you. So, okay, so the next book I read was actually not an audiobook, and it was, I finally read, I know you cannot see this, and I know the lighting is just poor. Oh, look, you can see it over here. Let's see this. So I read, this is the fifth volume of a book that I've talked about before, of a series I've talked about before. It's called Cherry Magic. 30 Years of Virginity Can Make You a Wizard. And it does say parental advisory, explicit content. Where? This was not wrapped in plastic when I bought it. Seriously, there's no explicit content. Unless explicit is they're gay? I don't know. But anyway, this story is adorable. So if you haven't heard me talk about it before, kind of the basis of this story, and so far it's been across 5 volumes. I think there's 2 more. I think that's it. It's a pretty slow moving, sort of slow burn kind of a thing. Basically, it is about Adachi and Kurosawa. This is Adachi, this is Kurosawa. Adachi turns 30. They both work in the same office. Doing what? Who can say? They always work in offices in these things, and you're like, cool, I'm just going to accept it. I'm just accepting it. We're just going with the flow, you know? So, Adachi turns 30. He's a virgin, and he can hear, starting with that event, he finds out that he can hear other people's thoughts. And he overhears, I think he has to touch them. I can't remember. He can hear Kurosawa's thoughts. And Kurosawa is kind of the hot shot, but really nice and really attractive guy who works at the office. And he has a crush on Adachi. And it's just precious. And so in the 6th volume, this one, they're dating. And it's so cute. And mostly this volume is about whether Adachi wants to not come out to Kurosawa, but be honest about his mind reading abilities. And it also focuses on another couple as well. I can't remember their names right now. But Adachi has a friend who is an author, I think, who starts liking this sort of younger guy who was in like a boy band or like a dance band thing. I don't know. And Adachi, I don't think realized that he was also a virgin. So when he turns 30, he can start hearing other people's thoughts too. And so he and Adachi can talk about it. But Adachi feels a lot of guilt because like he can use his gift to, he obviously knows more about what Kurosawa is feeling. Now that they're together, obviously Kurosawa is more open and they speak about these things and they have conversations. But before he was just getting it from accidentally mind reading him. And they finally kiss in this volume. It's so cute. It's so precious and pure and adorable. And it's just such a light. I love it. I'm going to be sad when it ends. But maybe the next volume will actually be explicit. Because what is this? This is not explicit. Okay? And maybe this is against the rules, but... Can you see that? It's so cute. They kiss in this closet at work. Like, you see it? Well, you probably can't see it. It's so cute. It's adorable. It's adorable. So anyway, it's about whether or not he wants to tell Kurosawa that he can read minds. He does. And it's so funny because his line is like literally they're talking. And what does he say? He's just like, I'm a wizard. I don't know where it's at. It's just like, he's so serious. Aww. They're so cute. I'm dying. I'm sorry. I got distracted. Where is it at? He's so serious when he says it. He's just like, I'm a wizard. It's so funny. But anyway, highly recommend. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. Super cute. I don't read as much manga as I'd like. I have so much manga. I started collecting it in April 2020. And I've had a great time the last 2.5 years reading it. But sometimes my eyes are... I read a lot of my Kindle as well. And my eyes just get really tired. And, you want to make sure you're, like, seeing everything when you're reading this stuff. Anyway, it's adorable. It's highly appropriate. Like, I don't know why it says a parental advisory. All right, the next book I actually read and finished is one... I'll put this back here. That my friend saw at the library. My friend Jen and I. It's so funny. When we met, we weren't reading a lot of the same things. And then suddenly, like, she read a book and then fell into, like, the gay pit with me. And next thing I know, we're both, like, passing books back and forth. And it's, like, it's the best thing ever. She's like, have you read this author? I'm like, no. Have you read this author? And so she reads so much. But she saw this book, Burly Tales. Fairy Tales for the Hirsute and Hefty Gay Man. And it is a short story collection. Kind of their fairy tales. Some of them traditional, non-traditional spins on traditional tales. Most of them are sort of original stories. And let me tell you, I just realized part of this blanket's upside down. Anyway, some of them... I don't know what to say about this because the cover is dope, right? It's so good. But it wasn't, like, it only has 58 ratings and 31 reviews on Goodreads. And she said it was at the library. Like, she didn't have to order it. She just saw it. And she didn't read it yet. And she's not sure she's going to now. But I don't know what to think about this. It definitely needed some more proofreading. And... the problem with short stories, again, is sometimes the depth. the lack of depth. I really love fairy tales. I love fairy tales. You know me. And I have read a lot of great fairy tale collections. I've read Megan Dare. I've talked about her on here some. She has some great fairy tale collections, some of them based on traditional tales, some of them not. They suffer from some of the same problems that this collection does. But this was nice because, of course, representation, right? I was like, what's hirsute? I don't have no idea what that is. But of course, it's about, like, so the guy, his name is Steve Berman. He's the editor. He has this whole author's note at the end where he talks about, like, why he decided to put this collection together and, like, all the authors and stuff. And so he talks about it being for, like the bear community, within, like, the gay community. I don't know how familiar you are with that. I won't go into a lot of depth. Either you know or you don't know. But, I mean, because basically they're gay fairy tales, but they're also about, like, usually pretty, like, hefty, heavyset, tall, hairy men. Like, very sort of, like, masculine-looking dudes. And I liked some of these better than others. Some of them were, like, legit confusing. One of them is, like, a story of, like, Goldilocks and, like, the three bears, right? Like the perfect fit. I think that's what it is, right? Like, the one bed's too small, one's too big, one's just right. Like, there's different, like, chairs. I can't remember. There's a retelling of that's, like, I think about, like, a throuple plus the newbie. What's that? A quartuple? A polyamorous relationship? A circle? I don't know. But it was confusing. It was actually, so it was hard to follow. So I was like, I don't know what's happening. I caught on eventually. I was like, oh, this is like a bear thing. Okay, got it. But there was some I really liked. Like, there was one that was a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk. But the giants, like, I can't remember his name, but he was, like, not thrilled. He, like, purposely, like, had the real estate agent pick this house off the cloud because he was like, I don't like people. And when he finds out there's a human in his house, it's like a vermin, it's like rats, and he's, like, afraid, and he's mad. And so he ends up calling an exterminator, who's, like, this beautiful, like, burly, handsome man, and he develops a crush on him, and the guy helps him get rid of the human. And he also has a goose, right, that lays the egg, the golden egg. But she was, like, accidentally cursed, and so he just took her in from a shelter. It's kind of cute. Okay, like, so that one was adorable. Because then they go back to his house. He's supposed to leave it for a while, and he and the guy go eat dinner, and they go back to the guy's house, and they're gonna, like, get busy, try some stuff. And then going back to the main character's house. I can't remember anybody's names right now. And there's a rager. There's a human rager going on in his house led by Jack. And he is so scared. And he wants to get them out of his house. And he wants to clean everything. He's going to have a panic attack. And it was pretty good. I'm trying to think of other ones I liked. There was a short one with Rapunzel, kind of a Rapunzel trope, which I think could have been better if it was longer. I don't know. It was fine. It was very hit or miss. Very hit or miss. I think there's good representation in it. I think there's a great diversity in the authors and the kinds of stories. Like, one of them had sort of like Mexican, I don't know, caballeros kind of vibe going on. But it turns out the cover art is, like, the best thing about this book. Yeah. Sorry about that. I give it 2 stars. No, I give it 3 stars. I don't know why, though. It was fine. It was fine. The next book I read, and I can go back here, was, God, I think this is the last book I have to talk about from my grad class. I read, but it's by Oliver Schreiner. It is the story of an African farm. Yes. And let me tell you, I don't know how much it has to do with African farms. I thought before I read this that I had an idea of what it was about. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. So it's like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I was like, okay, so maybe this is about, like, I don't know, slavery. Maybe it's about, like, I mean, it's an African farm, but like slavery happens everywhere, unfortunately, or it did. I mean, still in some places, obviously. But it's literally about a bunch of white people in South Africa. Like, they're mostly English and German. And none of the indigenous people, none of the African people are named. Like, they're just like servants. I was like, is this really the story of an African farm? I mean, it is a South African farm, but I was thinking like African farm. Whatever. I don't know. But it's about, there's these three main characters. There's Lyndall, there's Waldo, and then there's M. And mostly the story is Waldo's and Lyndall's. And it's basically like kind of this weird experimental, like Victorian novel about life. Like, Waldo is like the son of like this German overseer for this African farm. And, he kind of has this whole like crisis of faith, and when he's a kid, and he has like two besties. They're Lyndall and M. Lyndall ends up going off to school, to finishing school, and later comes back. And Lyndall and Waldo almost have, like, we were talking about this in my class yesterday, kind of like Heathcliff Cathy vibes from Wuthering Heights, because they have this whole like my soul recognizes your soul thing, and we're the only people that are meant for each other, but we're too messed up. We're too, like, it's never going to be the right time for us. Because Lyndall's very independent. She's very much a feminist. Came out in 1883. Olive Schreiner really believed in, like, first wave feminism, giving women the right to vote. So it's like an interesting read, but there also is like weird parts. Like, there's a whole section in there that's literally in like the universal we, talking about childhood and development. There's a whole embedded kind of didactic parable of this hunter finding truth on a hill. Waldo ends up meeting this this random stranger who tells him this story. And then it's weird. It's weird. I can't say I really liked it, but I listened to it, and then I wrote a discussion board post about it, and then I sat in a class where we talked about it. So, I don't know. We're talking about democracy in this class, right? Democracy and politics, and I could see elements of that in here, but it was just so interesting that, you know, for someone who advocated for rights of indigenous people, I guess after this came out, it's literally not about everyone's white. Like, everyone's white. Okay. Thanks, Olive. I don't know. So, I will say, if you're wondering, my favorite book that I read in this grad class that I actually read, because the first couple, oh God, I tried, but I didn't realize how much time I was going to take, which is that when I switched to audiobooks, I really enjoyed, weirdly, Felix Holt the Radical. I really liked that book. In fact, I'm writing a paper about that and Jane Eyre and the connections between the two, but I will not wax poetic about that right now. And I also really enjoyed the Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. That one was, I think, a really great audiobook, actually. I had a good time with it. So if you're looking for recommendations of Victorian novels that may or may not be political, I would definitely recommend The Moonstone. Probably that over Felix Holt the Radical, just because Felix Holt is more dense. Yeah. The other books, I can't say I recommend, guys. Can't say I recommend. All right. Then the last book I finished this month, even though I'm recording this a little bit early, but there's no way I'm finishing another book. And if I, I'll just put it on the next month's. So I finally read Volume 6. I know it's so bright you can't see this very well. I finally read Volume 6 of Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku. I think I talked about this in a list of books that I wanted to read this fall. I think I recorded it back in like October. I read this whole series. I was so mad. So I watched the anime probably in like spring, summer 2020. Really loved it. It's very sweet. And then in Japan, they were published in volumes of this size. So there was 11 of them. But in the US, they were putting 2 volumes in each US volume. And so we had 5 volumes that were like thicker. which was nice, which was fine. And I was collecting those as they came out. And last year I collected all of them and I was like, okay, it's done, right? We're done. So I'm going to read them now. And so I finally read all of them, got to the end of volume 5 and was like, are you kidding me? It's not done yet? Oh my God. So I had to wait on this guy. So my review of this is honestly not going to give it justice because this is such a sweet series. It's very, again, very appropriate. This one doesn't even have any warnings on it because it's just very appropriate. But it's an office romance between these two characters here, Hirotaka and then Narumi, I believe. Yeah, Narumi. And you can't see them very well, but they are just precious. Let me see if I can get a better picture. Here, we'll spoil it a little bit so we can like... I don't know if you can see them better there. Yeah, they're pretty cute. This is, so that's Narumi, that's Hirotaka. This guy is Hirotaka's younger brother and his girlfriend, who at first we all thought was a boy. I was really kind of sad, actually, when she was revealed to be a girl, but you know me, it's fine. Here's everybody. And then these two, I cannot remember their names. So sorry. But they also work with them and they're also otakus. Otaku is basically like super nerd. And so Hirotaka loves playing like video games. He's a hardcore gamer. And then Narumi loves doing, they call her a Fujoshi. She loves like manga. She loves BL, boys love stuff, like all the little gay mangas. She like does cosplay as well with her friend, who also works with them. But it's just a sweet little office romance story. It's these two people who aren't really sure how to be with anyone else. And Narumi is tired of hiding the fact that she's an otaku from all of her boyfriends because she keeps getting dumped for it, which is ridiculous. We're all nerds, but whatever. And so they just decide to date each other. He's like, well, how about you just date me then? And he's like not smooth. He's so cute. It's adorable. It's just, they're really precious. It's so cute. And I teared up a little bit at the end of this. I only gave it 4 stars though, because I probably should have given it more. It was so hard to get back into it after so long, but I didn't want to dedicate more time to reading the entire thing. But they're just utterly precious and sweet. And let me show you, look how cute they are. Aren't they so cute? Yeah, anyway, it's adorable. So it's just like, he like helps her at like her weekend events when she's like selling, they're called DJs, Jujensis, I think. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's basically like fan fiction manga. And so she draws those, and he helps her with that. And, they have their great friends that work with them that are also otakus, and they get married in one of the previous volumes, and it's just adorable and very sweet, and they have a great romance. And so you have like multiple romances in here, and they're just well done, and they're very pure and very sweet and very adorable. So yeah, so I read 7 books basically. I mean, we're being generous, okay? I read 7 books. So that means I read 13 books this month, which is like a miracle. It's a miracle, guys. I'm so excited. I don't know what December is going to look like. So in December, just kind of give you a preview, because I'm not really doing any TBRs right now, because I already made that fall TBR. And I'm trying to kind of knock some things off that. I'm currently listening to an audiobook of Jane Eyre, because I'm writing a paper that is comparing Jane Eyre to Felix Holt the Radical, and I haven't read Jane Eyre since like 2012 or 13. 2013 probably. Yeah, 13 or 14. And I have been in love with Jane Eyre since I was a teenager, but I hadn't read it until I was like 22, 23 in college. And it is just a story that speaks to me. It is obviously problematic, as I can look at it as as a romantic, and I can also look at it as a scholar. And I've definitely done that before, and done research and, definitely critiqued it. But it is just a beautiful story, and one that I really love, regardless of its flaws and, colonialism and Rochester lying about his mad wife. And, there are problematic things, but, I was listening to it in the car today, and it's by, I think she said in an interview that we're supposed to pronounce her name differently now, but I'm sorry, Tandy Newton. I am not going to do that right now. Yeah, Tandy Newton is the one who is narrating the version I'm reading right now, and she is killing it. It was the one that was free on Audible. Oh my God, Tandy Newton. She is like knocking it out of the park. It's already a wonderful story, but I am so in awe. I'm like, girl, you killing it. Like, I gotta watch more of your movies or something. Damn. But it's just a great story, and I was listening to it earlier, and like right now, if you're familiar with Jane Eyre, Jane is, Rochester has left without saying where he was going, and she didn't realize until later in the day that he had actually gone, and he's at a house party not far off, and she's realizing that she was so dumb to believe that maybe they were starting to have a connection, and how dare she, believe that. And so she talks about how, Blanche Ingram with, the housekeeper, Mrs. Fairfax, and, gets her description, and then does her own portrait in charcoal, and does like this beautiful portrait of Blanche Ingram, using all these beautiful colors. And, it reminded me, there's so many things I love about that book, and I will never forget. I know I'm going on a tangent here, but I will literally never forget the first time I watched an adaptation of Jane Eyre. It was like 2008 or 9. There was a version that came out on, I think BBC in 2006, and I watched it when I discovered period dramas in my later teen years. I think I was a junior or senior in high school, and I discovered all those period dramas, and I watched it, and I will never forget watching all 4 hours and staying up too late. It was a weekend, so it didn't matter, but just like the chemistry between Rochester and Jane, and it literally makes me cry. I'm such a romantic. So I was in the car, and she was like, she saves him from the fire, and he says something about how he knew that she would do him good the moment that they met, and that, something about like seeing her and meeting her wouldn't have, like struck like happiness into his inmost heart for nothing. And you're just like, did you really just say that, sir? It's so good. So anyway, on my way home, I was listening to it. I got to the end of a chapter, and then I there's a musical for Jane Eyre, and I might talk about this. Maybe I just love Jane Eyre, so maybe I'll do like a series or something. There's a musical for it that came out in 2001, and it was sort of plagued by not enough money. Alanis Morissette famously donated a bunch of money so it could extend its Broadway run, so it could be eligible for the Tonys the year it came out. And James Barber played Rochester, and this is probably the most controversial thing I will ever say on here, even after my rant about The Heart Principle by Helen Wang. So James Barber is like, he's a fairly prominent singer, but he's sort of, since the mid 2000s been sort of like, no one really talks about him, because like there were literally charges about like pedophilic charges against him, in like the mid to late 2000s, and Yeah. Yeah. And I still listen to him. First of all, he's beautiful. I know that's not a good enough reason, but also his voice is just incredible. So if you like Jane Eyre, I highly recommend listening to the cast album of the 2001 musical. I wish they had recorded that thing. I have tried to find versions of it. I've watched super sketchy, like recorded in theater versions. Anyway, it's wonderful. And then, so I listened to the song called Good As You, which is based on the scene in the book when Rochester is talking to Jane about his life and how maybe one day, he might have been as good as her when, maybe when he was younger, he maybe could have been as good as she is now. But life sort of treated him differently. And I literally cried in the car on the way home. It just hit me. And I was like, oh my God, I love this book. Anyway, so I will probably talk about it more when I finish it. But definitely, I'm reading Jane Eyre. And then, what else did I want to talk about? That's the only book I'm currently reading. I am going to also read, also in December, we started a Jane Austen book club, and so there's 7 of us. We were going to only do 6, but then my friend David was like, can my girlfriend be in it? And I was like, sure, dude, it's fine. So, anyway, we're doing the Jane Austen books. We're doing it sort of, we're sort of modeling ourselves after the Jane Austen book club book and movie. I've never read the book. I don't know if it's any good, but I love that movie, and I will not apologize for it. And if you like Jane Austen, but you've never read the Jane Austen, if you've never watched the Jane Austen book club movie, check it out. It's so good. I love it. It's excellent. And it has a great cast of characters and actors. But we're going to read Sense and Sensibility. So I'm listening to Jane Eyre, and then I'm going to start listening to Sense and Sensibility once I finish that. And so I don't know. I'll probably just read really short books, maybe some mangas over the next week and a half or so, maybe some poetry collections, because I want to start Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. I got this beautiful cover in the mail. Where is that? Oh, you know what? I'm going to grab it so I can show you. Okay, so Olivia Dade, first of all, flawless human. Love her so much. She wrote, spoiler alert, and All the Feels. She has other books. I just haven't read them yet. But I wanted to show you. So this is the regular cover for Shipwrecked. I mean, look at these guys. Look at them. That is those are some real humans right there. Where is this man in my life? Where are you, sir? Anyway, so this is about 2 actors who meet before they start recording or filming a TV show, and they don't know they're both on a TV show. They have this one night stand that apparently is really, really fantastic, and then they realize they're on the same show, and it's going to be a long haul, 6 years, and so I don't know if he does it. Both of them sort of turn off the whole, the thing that we can't be a thing, but we can be best friends, right? Or we can spend time together. And so after the show ends, it's the same show that Marcus was on in spoiler alert, and then also Alex in All the Feels. They were both on the same show as these 2. And it just sounds like a beautiful book. And I just love Olivia Dade so much because she does such justice. And I rarely feel justice in the representation that I see sometimes. So she just does it so well. And I really need to read more of her books. But I was on Instagram the other day, and I saw someone, I don't know who it was, post about a special cover that they had been commissioned to create for the book for an indie, for an indie store. And the indie store is, I cannot remember the name of the indie store, so I'll try to put it in the description. But they made a new cover that's like a clinch cover, like a traditional sort of historical romance cover, and there is not nudity on here. Everything is covered. Okay, it is beautiful. Okay, it is beautiful. I don't know if you can see that. Her hair is covering. Her hair is covering. But I mean, what? I could probably cry over the representation in this and how, like, you literally never see people that look like you on covers. And there's this woman that looks like me on this cover. I mean, obviously I don't have this beautiful hair, but yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I'm doing all right. I'm doing fine, as one of my kids said today. I was like, how you doing? She's like, I'm fine. And you know what? I'm fine too. So I hope you are fine. I hope that you are more than fine. And I hope that you were able to read a lot in November. I'm so thankful for you so thankful to you for sticking around. I promise, once I make it through these finals, I'm just like, I am so ready to be done with all of this extra school stuff so I can read more. I've been reading, I still think I've been reading a decent amount for the amount of busy that I am. I'm very proud of that, but it's still not, I'm not producing as many videos, and I missed that. So thank you so much for sticking around. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.